Welcome to Emma Details. Hey, every scar has a story, every betrayal leaves a mark, and every secret eventually comes to light. From heartbreaking family conflicts to shocking relationship betrayals, these emotional stories will take you through pain, resilience, and the moments when karma finally comes knocking. Don't forget to subscribe. Your next unforgettable tale starts now. I used to think I'd know the exact moment my marriage ended. Turns out it wasn't a moment. It was a rooftop in Atlanta, a glass of overpriced wine sweating in my hand, and my ex-wife laughing at me in front of 11 strangers like I was a punchline she'd been saving. The restaurant had string lights and a view of the skyline that probably cost extra. Everybody at that table had a drink and a reason to celebrate. Simone had just closed some investor round for her company, and her new husband, Terrence, had his arm draped over the back of her chair like he owned the room. I sat 2 seats down, doing the math on how many more hours I had to be here. A guy across the table, I never caught his name, somebody's +1, leaned toward me. "So what do you do, Daniel?" I get this question a lot, and honestly, I like answering it. Business administrator for a healthcare company. I run operations, manage teams, keep things from falling apart. Before I finished the sentence, Simone laughed. Not the laugh I used to know, the one that came out crooked when something actually struck her funny. This was performance, a laugh built for an audience. "Oh, Daniel." She waved her hand like she was shooing a fly. "He makes it sound fancy. Basically, he keeps the paperwork moving." Nobody said anything for a second. Then Terrence laughed, loud, easy, a man who'd never once worried about being the smallest person in a room. "Nah, I get it now. Simone always needed somebody organized around her. She's the dreamer. You're the guy making sure the printer works." A couple people chuckled, the kind of laugh people give when they're not sure if it's safe not to. I looked down at my plate. Not because I was ashamed of my job. I've never been ashamed of it a day in my life. But because I was doing this thing I do, where I file information away instead of reacting to it. She just said that in front of her investors. She just said that in front of me. I looked back up and smiled. That's one way to put it. Simone tilted her head, all faux innocence. "Don't take it personal. You know I'm just being honest." There it was. That sentence had a long resume. "I'm just being honest" was the thing she said right before she said something that wasn't honesty at all. Just cruelty wearing honesty's clothes. If I pushed back, I was sensitive. If I let it go, she took the silence as proof she'd been right. Terrence wasn't done. He leaned back, getting comfortable. "You can't be afraid to admit when somebody's ahead of you, man." "I'm not afraid of anybody being ahead of me," I said, keeping my voice level. "Then what is it?" I took a sip of water, partly to buy a second, partly because my mouth had gone dry in that specific way it does when you're holding something back. "Nothing. I just don't measure people that way." The table moved on to something else. Somebody's flight delay, I think. I wasn't really listening anymore. Something in me had quietly closed, like a door clicking shut down the hall. You don't always hear it happen. You just notice the draft is gone. I wasn't angry. That almost scared me more than anger would have. I just felt finished. And I think that's what actually unsettled Simone, more than anything Terrence or I said. She was used to me explaining myself, defending myself, trying to get her to see my side. That night I gave her nothing. No performance to react to. Just a man eating overpriced short ribs like nothing had happened. Here's the thing nobody tells you about a marriage ending. It's never the dramatic scene people expect. It's not the night you find the text or the night somebody screams. It's 100 small cuts, spread out over years, until one day you look down and realize you're bleeding and you don't even remember which cut did it. I met Simone in Charlotte 11 years ago, at a friend's birthday thing at a bar that's not even there anymore. She was loud in the best way, the kind of loud that makes a room lean toward her instead of away. She was building her first company out of a spare bedroom, eating cereal for dinner some nights because she forgot to grocery shop, and she'd call me at 11 p.m. just to tell me she landed a tiny client. Like it was the Super Bowl. I remember one night in my old apartment, and I mean old, mismatched furniture, a couch I got off Craigslist that smelled like somebody's grandmother's house no matter how many times I cleaned it. We were eating Chinese takeout out of the containers because neither of us had the energy to find plates. She looked around at the whole sad little scene and smiled. "One day we're gonna look back at this and laugh," she said. "At my furniture." "No." She shoved my shoulder. "At how hard we worked to get somewhere. That was the woman I married. Somebody who treated struggle like weather, annoying, temporary, something you just push through together. I helped her how I could. Organized her files, built her a real filing system out of nothing, prepped her for meetings, reminded her about deadlines she'd forget because she was juggling 6 things at once. She used to grab my face with both hands and say, "I don't know what I'd do without you." And I believed every word of it. I wasn't doing it for credit. I thought that's just what you do for the person you love. The first real crack, small enough that I told myself I was imagining it, came on an ordinary Tuesday. She walked in from some networking event, dropped her bag on the couch, kicked her shoes off one at a time. "You know, Daniel, you're too comfortable." I looked up from my laptop. "Meaning? You're good at your job. You just don't have the hunger." I shut the laptop. Didn't mean to. It was just a reflex. "I work hard." "I know you do." She said it the way you'd say something to a kid who tried his best on a test he still failed. "But you're not trying to become more." That one sat wrong with me for days. Because it wasn't about my goals anymore. It was about how she'd started measuring me, against her, specifically, like there was only one shape ambition was allowed to take. "Not everybody builds the same way," I told her. She smiled, not unkindly, which somehow made it worse. "That's what people say when they're scared to admit they're stuck." I let it go. I told myself she was stressed. Success has weight, I figured, and maybe some of that weight was landing on me by accident. I didn't want every disagreement to turn into a referendum on the relationship. Then it stopped being private. We were at dinner with friends. I don't even remember whose idea the dinner was. And somebody asked about our jobs. Simone lit up talking about her expansion plans, her hiring, her 5-year vision. I sat there proud, genuinely proud, nodding along. Then she turned to me, mid-laugh, and said, "Daniel's the organized one. He likes making sure everybody else's dreams actually function." Everybody laughed. I laughed too. "What else do you do?" But in the car later, I couldn't shake it. "That joke earlier," I said, "didn't feel great." She kept her eyes on the road. "What joke?" "The one about my job." A sigh. The kind that tells you the conversation's already lost before it starts. "Seriously, Daniel." "Yeah, seriously." I wasn't yelling. I don't yell. Never have, not even as a kid. My mother used to say I came out of the womb negotiating. Sometimes it feels like you make yourself look bigger by making me look smaller. That's not what I'm doing. I waited. Counted the streetlights. Honestly, just to have something to do with my eyes. "You take everything personally," she finally said. "I'm telling you how I feel. And I'm telling you you're overreacting." I looked out the window at nothing in particular, a gas station, a guy walking a dog at 11 at night, and thought, this is never going to be a conversation. It's always going to be a verdict. That was the first time it actually landed. Arguments with her weren't about being understood. They were about who walked away having won. After that, it just kept layering. If she was wrong, she didn't apologize. She explained why I'd misread the situation. If she hurt me, she explained why I shouldn't be hurt. I started keeping a quiet internal scoreboard of every conversation that ended with me apologizing for having feelings in the first place. There was a night I came home and my phone wasn't where I'd left it. Simone was on the couch, scrolling through it, completely unbothered, like she was reading a magazine in a waiting room. I stopped in the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Looking through your phone." "So the way you'd answer, 'What are you having for lunch?'" "Why?" A shrug. "Because I wanted to." "That's not okay, Simone." She actually laughed at that. "If you're innocent, why are you worried?" I stood there for a second, genuinely searching for the right words, the calm ones, because the other ones, the ones that would have actually matched how I felt, weren't going to help either of us. Trust isn't something you prove by letting somebody go through your private messages whenever they feel like it. She rolled her eyes so hard I swear I heard it. "You always make everything dramatic." I didn't say anything else. Because somewhere in that exact second, I understood something I didn't want to understand. She wasn't looking through my phone because she was scared of losing me. She was looking for a reason to justify a decision she'd already made somewhere in her head. After that, I stopped fighting every battle. Not because I'd come around to her version of things, because I'd started watching instead. How she talked to me when we were alone versus how she talked to me in front of people. How fast she could dismiss something that mattered to me. How comfortable she'd gotten criticizing me while expecting endless patience in return. The hardest part, honestly, wasn't the cruelty. It was the memory of who she used to be showing up at the worst times. Her dancing barefoot in the kitchen to whatever was on the radio, laughing so hard at one of my bad jokes she had to sit down, telling her sister on the phone. I got lucky with this one. Those memories made it harder to let go, not easier. I kept thinking, she's still in there somewhere. Maybe if I just give her more room. Looking back, that's probably the most honest mistake I made in the whole thing. Mistaking nostalgia for evidence. The months before the divorce were the quietest of my life. Not peaceful, just quiet. I'd stopped trying to convince somebody to see my worth, because I'd finally figured out you can't argue a person into respecting you. One night she asked, out of nowhere, why don't you argue anymore? Because I finally listened, I said. She frowned. Listen to what? Everything you've been saying. 4 years. She looked at me like she was waiting for the follow-up, the part where I'd list every grievance and ask her to fix it, like always. I didn't give her that. I just sat there, and I think that silence rattled her more than any fight ever could have, because she knew how to handle my frustration. She'd never had to learn how to handle me being done. What does that mean? You acting weird, she said. I'm not acting weird. I'm tired. Tired of what? I let that sit for a second. Tired of defending my value to my own wife. Something flickered across her face. Not anger, surprise, like she hadn't actually clocked how much had been piling up. But instead of sitting in that, she did the thing she always did. Protected herself first. That's not fair. Maybe not, I said. But that's how it feels. She stood up off the couch, arms crossed. You know what your problem is. You always want me to make you feel good. No, I said. I want my wife to respect me. You're too emotional, Daniel. There it was again. Same 4 words. Doing the same job they always did. Ending a conversation by making sure it never actually became one. By morning she'd act like nothing had happened. Coffee, emails, talking through her schedule for the day. Completely unbothered, while I was still sitting with the weight of the night before like it had moved in and unpacked its bags. That was something I learned about her late. She could say something devastating and wake up clean. I never figured out if that was a strength or a wound in her. Probably both. I started pulling back without announcing it. Stopped telling her the details of my work, because every update turned into a comparison. Stopped pitching ideas, because she'd find the gap in them before I finished the sentence. Stopped asking for encouragement, because I already knew the shape of the answer. One evening I told her about a new project at work, running operations across several departments, a real step up. Instead of congratulations, I got, so they gave you more work. That's one way to see it, I said. I'm just saying, don't confuse being useful with being successful. That sentence stuck to me longer than it should have, because it wasn't really about my title. It was about how little she actually understood what I did. She saw the job description, never the late nights solving problems before they became disasters nobody else even knew to worry about. I'd spent years helping people build the structure that let them succeed. Somehow the person closest to me decided that made me small. A few weeks later, at dinner with her business friends, somebody asked, "Does Daniel help with the business at all?" "He tries," Simone said, smiling, and the table laughed. "I try." I repeated, "Relax, I'm joking." Jokes have a way of telling the truth sideways. I knew she wasn't only joking. There was a real opinion riding underneath it, that whatever I contributed was small, background, forgettable. I didn't say anything else that night. I just packed it away with everything else and went home thinking, not for the first time, the marriage I'm fighting for might only exist in my memory at this point. The actual conversation happened on a rainy Tuesday in Charlotte, the same city where we'd started. No yelling, no thrown plates, nothing you'd see in a movie. Just rain against the window and two people who'd quietly become strangers sitting at the same kitchen table. Maybe we just want different things, she said. Maybe we do. She looked almost thrown by how easily I said it. That's it? You're not even going to fight for this? I looked at her for a long moment. Long enough that the silence got uncomfortable. Long enough that some part of me wanted to ask, when did you stop seeing me the way you used to? When did love turn into a leaderboard for you? But I already knew asking wouldn't fix anything. So instead I said, I think we both know this has been over for a while. People who knew us expected me to be furious through the divorce. Simone was ambitious, successful, a little ruthless when she needed to be, and they assumed I'd come out swinging. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted it to be quiet, the same way I wanted most things by then. Through mutual friends, word got back to me eventually. She told people she'd outgrown me, that she needed somebody who matched her level now. I didn't feel angry hearing that. I felt something closer to sad, because I remembered the woman eating cold low mine on a Craigslist couch, dreaming out loud about a future she hadn't built yet. The difference between us, I think, is that I never stopped respecting who she was before any of it. She stopped respecting who I was after. After the divorce, I didn't do anything dramatic. No big reinvention, no posting about glow-ups online. I just put my attention back where it belonged, on my own life. Took a couple of certifications I'd been putting off. Said yes to more responsibility at work. Let people get to know me a little, instead of disappearing into being useful for somebody else. It built slowly. A manager who used to talk past me in meetings started asking what I thought before deciding anything. A department that had been a mess for years started running clean because of systems I'd put in place. People started noticing things I'd been doing for a long time without anyone clocking it. Funny enough, the exact things Simone used to roll her eyes at were the exact things people started respecting me for. Months later, I heard her company was having a rough stretch. Nothing that made the news, nothing dramatic. Just the ordinary kind of trouble that happens when a business outgrows the structure holding it up. I didn't think much of it at first. Running a company is hard. I knew that better than most. I'd watched her build hairs from a spare bedroom. Then one afternoon my phone rang. I looked down and saw her name, and for a second I just stared at the screen like it might explain itself. Hello. A pause. Then, quietly, Daniel. Her voice was different. Smaller. None of the confidence from the rooftop, none of the edge. I need to talk to you. I leaned back in my chair. What happened? She hesitated. I need help. For a second, the old instinct flared up, the part of me that used to drop whatever I was doing the moment she needed something. Because for years I'd believed that's what love looked like. But I sat with it for a breath instead of acting on it. Not out of spite. Just clarity. What kind of help? I asked. She explained, a little unraveled. The company had grown faster than the systems underneath it could hold. Clients were frustrated. Her team was drowning. She needed somebody who understood organization, structure, operations. The exact thing she once laughed at over short ribs in front of investors. I listened. Didn't interrupt, didn't gloat, didn't feel the little flare of satisfaction I half expected to feel. When she finished, I said, I hope you find somebody who can help you with that. Silence on the line. That's it, she said. What do you mean? You're not going to help me. I let the quiet sit there for a second. Simone, you made it pretty clear who you wanted in your life. This isn't about that. It is, though. I kept my voice even, not cold, just honest. When things were good, you didn't need me. The second things got hard, suddenly my value changed back. She didn't say anything, and for the first time in a long time, I think she actually heard it. A few weeks later, somebody we both knew mentioned she'd hired an operations consultant, rebuilding parts of the company from the inside, learning the hard way what she could have learned from somebody who was already sitting at her kitchen table for years. I never wanted her to fail. I want to be clear about that, even to myself. I just stopped being the person who'd absorb the cost of her not seeing me clearly. Looking back, That rooftop dinner wasn't really the night she embarrassed me. It was the night she revealed something about herself she probably didn't mean to show that clearly. I didn't lose anything when she laughed at my job. She just showed me, in front of 11 people in a skyline, that she'd stopped seeing it. And honestly, the calmest win I've ever had wasn't proving her wrong. It was realizing I didn't need her, or anyone who underestimated me, to finally understand what I was worth. My job was never just anything. I was the guy who kept things from falling apart, who built the floor other people got to stand on without noticing it was there. And the person who laughed at that eventually learned the thing I already knew. The quiet one in the room is usually the one holding it up. Before you go, tell me in the comments, what would you have done in this situation? And if you love emotional stories filled with shocking twists, betrayal, and satisfying karma, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new story from Betrayal. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next tale.